It's the overnight shift at this gas station and convenience store in Huntsville, Alabama. At 3:15 a.m., a customer drops by and buys a banana. He leaves and then returns. After a few words with the clerk, it becomes clear. What he really wants is the money. The attacker pulls out a knife. And it's met by the clerk's machete. In the middle of the battle, the clerk hits the button on the wall that electronically locks the front door. The suspect is trapped. Outside the store is a female accomplice. And before the clerk knows what's happening, she starts engaging him. Meanwhile, the original suspect has used the diversion of his accomplice to go back into the store to get the cash. Back outside, the clerk has turned his attention to the suspect's car. The goal, he later told cops, was to make the car easier for police to identify. The male suspect takes the cash and goes to the defense of his car and his accomplice. They flee the scene. Incredibly, no one was seriously injured that night, including the clerk. The suspects, 32-year-old Seth Holcomb and 33-year-old Laney Nicholson, both pled guilty and received 3 years probation. The police recognized their car due to its very obvious damage. Arlington, Texas. It's 5 p.m. on a slow Tuesday at the cell phone store. 2 customers walk into the store.
At first, they're looking up and down different showcases, and then I ask them, how can I help them? And they're like, we got phones to sell. And I'm like, okay, all right, can I see them? And instead of pulling out the phone, he pulls out his gun. And then he points and he's like, give me everything you got. And for a second, I was like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna step aside and let him do his thing. But then he jumped the counter and he got very aggressive. And then he pushed my dad. You don't push family, he's my dad, you know, you don't push him like that.
Harris and the man with a gun get into a wrestling match. The gun falls to the floor.
I was just in a flight or fight situation, and I was like, okay, let me put him down. I thought it was his only gun, and I had him down on the floor. And then the other guy pulled out a gun. And I specifically remember the first guy is telling the second guy to shoot. Shoot. Why aren't you shooting? And I pushed him a little bit towards the other guy, so, you know, if God forbid that guy shoots, he shoots at his friend, not at us.
Faced with a second gun, father and son know they have to get away from their attackers.
We were so terrified, so better to let them go, they did.
Once outside, the second gunman runs, leaving behind his accomplice. But when his accomplice calls out for help, he comes back.
I didn't want to let him go. But then when his friend came back, in my mind was like, no, dude, what if his friend shoots? What if something happens? Just let him go, it's over. Just let him go.
In the aftermath of the attack, one moment stands out in Karam's memory.
When the person was pointing a gun to me and he jumped between both of us to save my life. I really appreciate it. He did a very, very good, brave job. I'm very thankful and very appreciative to my son Harris. He's a very good young boy.
The 2 men call police. That's when the reality of what just happened sinks in.
When they left, I thought they were the kids. these are not the real guns. But when the police came in and they say, yes, it's a real gun, it was fully loaded and luckily did not been shot.
When we found out that it was real guns, I was having panic attacks at night.
The suspects are still at large. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Terry Zamore works as a rideshare driver for a reason.
In 1998, someone I had known for 30 years that had a drinking problem shot me 6 times. And I have really bad leg injury and can't walk long distances. Driving is great. I don't have to do any walking. I'm just sitting in the car.
But on this day, Terry's about to rack up some unanticipated expenses.
Just dropped someone off at the doctor's office.
Then this happens.
My name is Terry Zamore, and I survived a hit and run. When the lady hit me, because I was in shock, I felt something pop in my shoulder.
Terry stands in front of the woman's car so she doesn't drive away.
I could see she's going to take off, and she looks like she's going to drive over me. I was on the hood of the car. The most she could do was take off, and I just rolled back off the hood. I was on adrenaline.
The woman who hit Terry slowly rolls forward. The woman begins to pick up pieces of her car, ignoring Terry, who asks for help from another driver at the scene.
Get up, wait.
Then the woman begins to drive away. Terry is now back in her car and in hot pursuit.
I was in excruciating pain. That's why you hear me breathing so heavy. I'm just trying to deal with the pain I'm in. I felt it was my civic duty to catch her, take one less crazy driver off the road.
The suspect sees Terry behind her and runs a red light. Terry does too. And though police advise against pursuing someone who flees an accident scene, Terry does so anyway.
I was laser focused on my surroundings to make sure I wasn't going to put anybody else in danger.
Not unlike authorities, Terry uses a maneuver to bump the woman's car to get her to stop. The woman seems shocked and yells at Terry.
Wait! She makes a right turn into the apartment complex, and I knew at that point I had her.
Are you crazy? Why are you banging up your car door?
I'm afraid she's going to take off on foot, or she's going to try to drive through the hedge. So I reached in the car, took the keys out of the ignition, and ran back to my car.
Give me my key. You give me my key. Give me my key. Where's my key, lady?
Police arrive and separate the women. Police determine Terry wasn't criminally responsible for the accident, but 55-year-old Marilyn Villanueva is. Police intended to charge her with a hit and run and driving with an expired license, but she never appeared for her court hearing. At the time of this production, the case was still pending. Oakland Park, Florida. Around 1 p.m., these men are milling around CAD Auto Parts on what looks like a typical day. Inside the office, 39-year-old Andrew Hepburn is on his cell phone when a man appears in the doorway. It looks like he's asking a question, but then he's quickly bumped out of the way by this man. He's got a gun and keeps it trained on Andrew, who is managing to keep his cool, until he's dragged from his chair by the shirt. The man pistol whips Andrew and orders him to the ground. It turns out the man in the doorway has a gun too. He's a lookout. A man who had been sitting in the shop just outside the office is on the move, but the lookout isn't about to let him go anywhere. Meanwhile, the gunman inside the office is trying to get Andrew to put his hands behind his back. The lookout holds on to the eyewitness who steps deeper into the office. Andrew takes advantage of the momentary distraction to pounce. The other two men make a run for it, while Andrew gains the upper hand. Andrew fires on the lookout, who fires back. A bullet goes through the wall. Then Andrew turns his full attention to the assailant who threw him to the floor. Andrew punches the suspect as he struggles. Police arrive and find two wounded people outside. One assailant and Andrew, who shot his attacker 5 times, but also took a bullet to the chest from the lookout. Andrew is treated for his injuries and makes a full recovery. Police arrest 36-year-old Conrad Bloomfield. He is treated at the hospital and recovers. For reasons not disclosed by the court, the charges were dropped. The second suspect is still at large. It's a busy afternoon at Bully Camp Pet Store, where manager Alize James is juggling puppies and paperwork. The store, owned by Alize's uncle, specializes in bully breeds. At 3:31 p.m., this pair walks in.
The couple walked in very aggressively, demanding like a dog that they were gonna take today for sure. I was a little off-put by it, and then the woman eventually gave me her phone number in the process, so my guard was let down because of it. Then they wanted to look at all of the dogs that we had. They found the dog that they decided they wanted. Her name was Chica.
Chica, an exotic 7-month-old bully, is being sold for $10,000. She also just had eye surgery and requires medication and special care. Alize takes Chica out of her crate and lets the couple hold her.
At the time, I was multitasking with about 2 other customer groups in my store that had walked in after them.
As she juggles the other customers and Chica's crate mates that are now also loose in the store, a delivery truck pulls up.
My name is Alize James, and I survived an aggravated armed robbery.
Ever multitasking, Alize remembers urgent paperwork she needs to get out the door.
I instantly remembered that I had invoices that I needed to get out. So I told the customers, if you would give me 1 second, I'll be right back. And in the video, you can see me bolting upstairs to the back.
And as Alize goes upstairs, that's when this couple makes a move. The woman casually leaves the store with Chica in tow. The man follows her out.
Once I had made it up the stairs, I heard those bells chime, and I instantly had a bad feeling. It took me less than 8 seconds to make it to the front door, and I seen the couple running.
Alize runs after the couple.
I just saw a dog getting taken away right after a major surgery. I wasn't worried about myself. I wasn't worried about the customers still in my store. My main goal was to get my dog back safely. I had jumped in front of the car and yelling at these maniacs trying to steal my dog. I said, just give me the dog, just give me the dog. I don't care. I just want my dog back.
The man tries to hit Alize with his car. He misses her as he floors it and hits the street. But the dog lover isn't done trying to rescue her animal. She jumps on the car to avoid getting run over. A passerby records the action on his phone.
There I am, holding on to the hood of the car, my phone in one hand and my handful of mail invoices in the other. He began to swerve very violently back and forth on a one-way street. I can't explain how much adrenaline I felt going through my body. While I was on top of the car, the woman also had got out of the passenger's window. She began to hit me, scratch me, and punch me in my head. I was very terrified.
Luckily, Alize had a secret weapon hanging around her neck.
My boyfriend had gifted me for our anniversary a necklace that had an emergency beacon on it. It's a pendant, with a button on the back. And that button, once it's pressed and activated, it will alert everybody in my emergency contact list, and then it sends an alert to 911 as well.
Meanwhile, the driver finally makes another turn and stops the car.
He parked in the middle of the street. I got out. He began to hit me on my sides, punch me in my legs. The entire time, I was still kind of stuck, frozen, holding on to the car's hood because I was more terrified of what he was gonna do next to me. At that point, I started kicking and kicking, but he eventually grabbed me by my neck to get me off the car.
Alize falls to the ground as the car drives off with Chica still inside. Sadly, Chica is still missing.
I did all I could, really, to try to get my dog back, and it just wasn't enough in the end. So I do blame myself in a way, especially because I went through hell and back for her, and she just didn't make it out.
The couple gets away temporarily. 2 months later, the woman, Royashana King, is arrested and charged with aggravated robbery involving the use of her car as a deadly weapon. At the time of this production, her trial is pending. The man has not yet been arrested. Alize feels lucky to be alive.
I could have ended up on the side of the street, paralyzed. I could have been killed. I could have been somewhere else right now, but I'm not. And that's all I look at. I'm not there, I'm here. I'm healthy, I'm alive, I'm well.
Law enforcement experts strongly advise victims to call the police if a pet is stolen. Do not confront any assailant.